Flight Boss, bitch, you know, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Terry Moon, Flight Boss, the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And right now, this goes out to everyone who is teaching and everyone who is willing to learn. Before you teach about anything, now, I know you may look at me, I call myself Archangel Uriel, I may use certain language, I may look certain ways, you know what I'm saying, I may smoke weed. So, it's going to make you look at me in a certain way that you don't want to give me the level of respect. But I'm talking about, slide all that aside, and we're just talking about spiritual natures right now. This is something everybody needs to understand if they're going to go into their life to teach someone or to learn and go and apply things to their life. Everything is about properties. So, you know, as mankind, we give a lot of names and stuff to certain properties. And the better we understand these properties, we give it certain names. So whatever person come up with the best idea of that property, then 9 times out of 10, most of the world follow that person's doctrine or philosophy because it's they had the highest idea of that property. But so when I'm talking about teachers and teaching and things of that nature, this is just slide all of that aside. Your spirit is going to be able to understand this. Before you talk about anything that's like dealing with positive, negative, male, female, give, receive, even morality. Morality, that's religious annotation. So anytime you hear something about morality, that's a religious text. Morality is just another word for religion. That's someone who clings on to a certain philosophy or a doctrine. But we know philosophies and doctrines are created based upon the location that you are in and the situation you are in and the people, places, and things you are around and what you grew up and involved in. This is what creates philosophies and doctrines. So anytime you tie a morality to that, you are a religious person in that world. So whatever you want to say, but you have to understand this. What are you trying to be moral on? Are you looking at someone who has more money than someone else, so you give them a moral responsibility that they're supposed to do things for other people? See, that's who placed that money in your location, in your situation, and made y'all feelings and emotions aroused in that way that y'all vibrationally communicating with each other and adding religious texts to physical things that was created here as tools. You see what I'm saying? So don't even dive too far in morality. That's a lost man's science. You need to understand how to structure yourself and understand how to relate to others. Then there will be no need for morality because you will understand how to balance yourself with others, and you will know who to be around and who not to be around subconsciously anyway. Now, when we talk about the most single property in the world, in this universe, that all these sciences derived from, I'm talking about give or receive, positive, negative, the charges, and all this shit. Everything is derived from expansion and contraction. Expansion and contraction. Now, let's break this down a little further. And at the end, I'm going to let you know what's exactly expanding and contracting. But this is going to, so if you are a teacher, you need to before you talk about all that shit, you need to understand this first. And if you are learning, before you take anything else outside of life and try to understand it, you will truly understand it by understanding this property. And then I'm going to break down how we know what is the best properties, or the single most, or the first property, and where all the other properties derived from, all the other doctrines derived from. We're going to talk about how we break that down and know what it is, so it don't be no mistake, no arguments, no nothing. It's just going to be common sense, and your spirit going to know it. Now, it's expansion and contraction. Now, the first question, somebody would be like, okay, then what was first? Okay, let's make sense out of this. When we talk about expansion and contraction, expansion is giving off, but it's also going out. So we know this pushes off. So we know this is correlated more to the positive, the male. So we know it was first, not because it was male and positive, how people try to say it. And I'm not talking about the physical men and women, but I'm talking about the attributes, the energetic frequency, the signatures. I'm not talking about it's first just because it's male, but we have to make sense out of this. When we talk about the contraction aspect, we know contraction is giving off, releasing. When a woman goes through contractions, she give off. Contraction deals with subtraction, deducting. So how can, and it just makes sense to understand that the contraction wasn't first, because how can something contract into something, so into itself, without being expanded first? You see what I'm saying? So this makes sense to know that the expansion was first, in order for something to be in something, or to even have room to contract or to subtract. If there's nothing there to subtract and contract into in the first place, you see what I'm saying? So that lets us know the expansion was first. Now expansion, that gives, right? That gives. So it pushes out. So it's more correlated to the positive. It's more correlated to the male energy frequency vibration, the masculine, not the body. Not the physical traits. How I'm trying to tell y'all. And I gotta charge this motherfucking camera. It's about to down us. So we know expansion was first. So if you want to talk about the heartbeat, everything has a beat, has a pulse. Everything has a pulse. That's where it comes from. See what I'm saying? Now, when you want to talk about giving, that's where pushing off comes from. When you want to talk about direction, space, you know what I'm saying, more space, more awareness, more conscious, and then the 360, that's where expansion, that comes from the expansion. Now, contraction. Contraction is when the expansion reaches its limits for that first time. That means inexperienced in your life, because you're the lesser life. But in this life, expansion means that first expansion that's the first experience. Now it contracts. Now what contractions deals with? Subtraction, deduction, giving off. You know what I'm saying? Giving what you just received. See how it goes back? So this is where balance came from. This is where this is where balance, give and receive come from. This is where male and female come from, because you gave off, and then you got the contraction. You know what I'm saying? It went in when it just went off. Then so you got conceiving. So what does females do? Conceive, have contractions, right? Give off the child, right? So now you want to be like, okay, why is you calling expansion the positive and male, and why you calling contraction the negative and the female? Now, if you was to go have sex and you were male, right? You give off your semen. Now, the female receives it. Fire, water. You see what I'm saying? This is fire, water, esoterically. So, you as the expansion, she conceived, she expanded from what she conceived, stomach got bigger, then it's time for contractions. Her water break and everything drains down. She gives off. So see the subtraction. So this what creates, when a male and female comes together, it creates that centerpiece, that balance. But that balance, see, balance don't really exist. Everything derives from expansion, contraction. You see what I'm saying? Everything so the first star, the first nucleus, the first whatever was a form of expansion. And what expanded in that first form? The spirit. Because the spirit, the soul, which is an individual spirit, is in the astral realm, which is the shapeless, formless realm. And when it's communicating with other spirits and traveling, start creating sound and light, and then that gets in those bodies can be took by spirits, and when spirits utilize those gas and sounds and light bodies, they're able to experience different realms to make those bodies more dense and physical. And then that's creating another body. And once those transformations go, once they die in all those transformations, aka informations, the spirit is able to take a dense body. You see what I'm saying? A more heavier, denser body. So when we talk about the spirit, that's what's expanding and contracting in all physical forms. So once for an example, once I get super like 90 years old or something like that, I should have developed enough information and experiences, aka that means my spirit, it should be big enough. It should have expanded enough and contracted enough that it's no longer, it outweighs this body. This body is gonna look tarnished and shit like that. I no longer could take one of these bodies. I have to go somewhere and take another body where I could create another nucleus, another shape or form, another brain, you know what I'm saying, and then jump into that motherfucker and start making that motherfucker expand. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about sperm cells or nucleuses in the middle of the brain and shit like that, your spirit, those are the first forms of bodies, like bacteria and shit like that. These lights and sounds, these are the first forms of body that your spirit take and make those things get on this course of time and experience and transformations and shit, and make these things die and transform and take new shapes and forms. And your spirit is doing that by developing information, and the form is doing that by what you consider dying, but it's just transforming and taking shape and form. But see, what you need to understand, this is why your heart beat, this is why your brain have a pulse, this is why all your physical representations have pulses. This is why your blood pump. It all go back to the layer of the spirit that's in it, that's making it pulse. You know what I'm saying? This would make sperm cells move. Your spirit. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at the semen of a male, look at that like the semen will be like Earth. Then all the billions of people on Earth will be the billions of sperm cells. So each sperm cell has a spirit in it. Because each sperm cell is you, a body cell. So the sperm cell, all the sperm cells is all the spirits in those bodies. Same way, all the people, you are all people with spirits in y'all in semen, aka the cosmic egg, aka Gaia, aka Earth. You see what I'm saying? So, and you have a spirit moving in your body. So you as a spirit already, and you took a lot of different forms. A lot of spirits be in different realms of realities that could come into life that don't have nothing to do with sex or sperm. There's levels of life that you could come into existence just off pure thought. It's beings there that their sperm, it ain't even sperm, but their way of birth and shit like that is through thought. But in that physical firmament, you see what I'm saying? It's a whole bunch of different ways to come into realms of realities. This is just this realm of reality because we're in a lower nature. But at the same time, when we talk about everything is expansion and contraction. So with this expansion, right? With the spirit and the overall spirit, right? Things is being developed within that. This is where we come into play. But I'm just talking about what the most single property in the universe is expansion and contraction. This is where everything derived from. Now, when the first expansion, right? That first expansion, the how far it go is the level of experience. So there's going to be a lot of things consist of in that space what was expanded. And the expansion, if things developing as far as information, remind you that's within the expansion, within the being. So when it's time to contract, it don't contract all the way to where it initially started from because it developed information, right? It developed awareness, more awareness. So it contracted to as far as it condensed to as far as the things that's in it, the information it developed. So that's how big the spirit is now. It's like this limit now. So now the next springboard, the next trampoline jump, the next bounce, the next expansion from this contraction could be further out. Because the last expansion stopped from the stuff, the first information was there. It didn't go all the way back from the first. So look, it'd be like this. This is how it all started. With nothingness. Boom, then expansion. All that information developed. So the contraction don't go all the way back there. It go here. So it's right here now. So this is what you call balance. When you pick a location, pick a spot. There's no such thing as location and distance in the astral realm. There's just spots and feelings. So it's like, if you want to stay balanced in some way, you will stay right here. You'll stay in this little expansion or contraction. But if you want to expand, aka keyword, expand your horizons, you have to bounce out further. You know what I'm saying? And then if you want to take a little away, give off a little bit more, you have to contract a little more. But it's only so much you can contract based upon the experience that you already developed. That shit is already going to be there. Can't squeeze that out because it's going to cause situations in your original life. So you know what I'm saying? You got to deal with those. So, you know, you can either stay stagnant or expand your horizons. Now, once you expand, you got more information. Your 360 is wider. So your contraction is going to be less. Now this is this. See how that's a whole world now? Now, boom, you like this. Now you go out further. Boom. Then it's like this. And then all the shit that contraction that don't let the contraction all the way go back to the center is things that you're developing, mechanisms, physical realms of realities, situations, stuff that you're living in within yourself. You see what I'm saying? Your reality. So when you look at life, the single most property of life, everything correlates to that. I don't care if you're talking about sound. Sound vibrates. Light vibrates. Everything vibrates. And where did vibration come from? Expansion and contraction. That's vibration came from that shit. So when I talk about frequency, vibration, and energy, we know the frequency vibration is the astral realm. We know that's the ideas, concepts, and things of that nature. And once they start to that's the frequency and the ideas and the thoughts. And then once that start to vibrate, that came second, which it goes into time, experience, the rainbow waters of it, the emotions and feelings, the movement, the motion. That's the vibration realm. So you know, as a spirit, we in the frequency, but once we become an individual spirit and have our own idea of this travel we're going through at the time, whatever age, then we become a soul, an individual spirit. That's a soul. So we're vibrating on our own source, our own magnitude, our own light. We can go our own direction if we want to, or this, that, and the third, or we can stay aligning and bounce back and play jump rope. Now, with this body, we create the energy world, and the energy world is all shapes and forms, from the non-physical to the physical, the most less dense to the dense. That's how the energy world works. You get to feel the energy of things that's being created from the frequency vibration realm. So now the energy realm is the yang realm, what could be seen. The vibration realm is the yin realm. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's the frequency vibration realm. So the energy realm is everything that can be seen. So this is the creation. But the frequency vibration is the creator, where our spirits live at. And we create the energy of things so we can see them take shape and form, so we can jump into those lights and experience that realm of reality as influences and shit like that. So this is what we do in that spirits, and we create the energy realm. We could be felt, we could be seen, we could be manifested, we could be brought into dimensions, and we could be brought in the universe. So we created, or our ancestor spirit in the frequency vibration astral realm, the yin realm, have created the first spirit that created the first physical form, the first energetic, the physical first energy form. It was non-physical, so it was the first energy. Now, that became like a nucleus, whatever like that. The property that had was expansion and contraction, and within this universe, that's what everything you see in this universe correlate to. I don't care what it is, expansion, contraction. I don't even give a fuck if you got an idea. That's a form of an expansion and contraction. Come on, clear up. That's a form of an expansion and a contraction. Because look, your idea, right? Now you can expand on your thoughts, aka add more ideas and add more spirits and people, places, and things to it, to bring it into fruition faster, and harboring on these thoughts. Or you can let it go on one side and not the other, one ear not the other, one side of the heart and not the other side of the heart pump. You know what I'm saying? One kidney and not the other kidney out of your gut. You see what I'm saying? Out of one part of your brain and then out of your sexual organ. So you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things you could when we thinking about doing this shit. As far as this motherfucking realm of reality, and we talking about everything that we created in the energy realm. So everything is expansion and contraction. This is where everything. This is the single most single most property. So if you are a teacher, you need to understand this science before you talk about positive, negative, or whatever. It's all about expansion and contraction. Everything. This is why your body you breathe. This is why you breathe in and breathe out. This is why your heart pump. This is why you got pulses. Everything. This is why, like, an idea. The idea, you can expand on it, and then you give it off, express it. You have feelings that you catch. Then you give it off. The feelings that you had, you give it off to others. So for an example, you could be a person who got hurt in your life in a lot of ways. All that pain and shit. So you got this pent up shit that you give off to others. So you end up being a negative person because you got hurt in your life so much. Just that and a third. So you gotta understand that it's just expansion and contraction. Everything is expansion and contraction. And once you start to get lost into words and shit like that, that's where you get lost into religion, or you get lost into spirituality, or you get lost into something where we know in life everything is, you could be a deaf person and can't understand language. You understand something is pumping, and where does pumping and vibrating come from? The art of expansion and contraction. So say all your senses get shut down and you have no senses. you will be forced, your spirit will be forced to utilize your body, because your spirit can't utilize none of the senses, so it would be forced to find other ways how to communicate. And you will find the true way to communicate, which is expansion and contraction, vibrating. So since now you and your spirit is in such a low density, and it's in bodies relating to millions of other different expansion contractions, aka people, spirits, and shit like that. Everything you see in a physical form is just like something in the astral realm, but it's not that exactly. But I'm explaining to you, in the astral realm is this expansion and contraction. Everything else is just representations of that and like that, but it's not that exactly. This is why we can make sense and correlate and metaphorically say things, but we can't say or have any proof that whatever we're correlating that to is actually that. You see what I'm saying? So when we talk about since you're down here and you're dealing with a bunch of other mini versions of expansions and contractions, because you're within an overall expansion and contraction type of system that's going on, then how large or how small your expansion and contraction level is letting people know your spiritual source and your things of that nature. And whatever location you are in, this is how your expansion and contraction has to vibrate. So for an example, you ever heard the terms of somebody's doing too much? Okay, their spirit is in a location. Same way their body is in a location that's experiencing shit, their spirit is in a certain location, aka experiencing and resonating with the vibes that's going on with whatever location that they spirit then put their body in at that time. Their spirit is going to be resonating with the astral aspect that's going on with things. So what's happening here is, in that realm, it's going to be a realm of learning or wisdom or love or hate or whatever like that. Now how you participate is your expansion and contraction. So for the most part, if you in a certain space that's expanding and contraction to a certain level, right? Say you may be vibrating, keywords, vibrating, right? The way you're vibrating in that area, say maybe too much. Damn. Say it may be too much. Your expansion and contraction may outweigh that space. So everybody who in that space gonna be looking at you like, this motherfucker doing too much. So in the physical realm, whatever you're doing, whatever shape or form in that reality that would allow you to partake in action and for it to be seen in the physical forms and the lights with your light body, right? Whatever you doing is going to be seen overwhelming, or it's going to look like you're doing too much to the people. But in the astral realm, what's going on is your spirit, your expansion and contraction level outweighs that world. So every time you expand, you outweigh everybody in that world of expansion and contraction. And the people that's in it might just want to expand and contract on that level of how that world is expanding and contracting. So once you come in super vibrating and shit, you doing too much. You become a chaotic situation in that. And if that level of life, if you outlive that level of life, you don't need to be in that small world anyway. So you don't need to be participating with those people, places, and things in that world anyway, because you're bigger than that. You ever heard that in your life? You around people, or you're dealing with situations, and you got somebody trying to give you some good advice, like, man, don't dive into what they trying to put you in, and man, you're bigger than that. Why? You see, you have to pay attention to the words. Everything derives from that, from the spirit realm. Expansion and contraction. It don't matter what you say. You don't even know why you say certain things. And then there's a bunch of lore doctrines and philosophies and meanings of reason as to why you saying what you're saying. But but you say certain things because you got no choice, because your spirit always know. That's why when somebody be like, man, I'm going to heaven. And when you ask somebody, they be like, man, heaven is in the sky, right? You ask a religious person, right? But then you go get high and shit and be like, man, I'm high as hell. So why is you saying you high as hell, but when you go to church, you say you're trying to go to heaven? That's your spirit trying to tell you that's the same fucking place. Heaven and hell's the same place. So you got niggas in church trying to get it high, and you got niggas who on drugs and crackheads and shit trying to get it high. Y'all going to the same place. Because the church motherfucker gonna tell you need to change your life, but then you gonna be telling the church motherfucker that your ass is too religious. Y'all both on the same polar opposite of the scale. You know what I'm saying? That's what I be saying, even with atheists and shit. If an atheist is hating on a certain religion, specifically Christianity, because that's what most of them like to do, then they're Christians. That's just their way of being a Christian. You see what I'm saying? Now it only works if you have something better or you have an alternative system to go towards. Now, if you're gonna be hating on a Pacific system, if you're gonna be hating on Christianity and you're an atheist, then your ass better have something better to cling on to. But if a Christian asks you, okay, do you have something better to cling on to? And if it correlates and it can make sense with their spirit, or if you ain't even spiritual at all, if they ask you that and the only thing you can say is, well, I'm just telling you that you don't need your shit, then your ass is a Christian. That's just your way of being a Christian. Y'all just arguing with the shit that y'all was into. Y'all was birthed from that spirit. You know what I'm saying? And this is y'all, and you just got disgruntled children who like to run away, children who like to obey. You got and as you got all, but you're all still the children of that spirit, of that who created that religious doctrine. So it doesn't matter. So if you're an atheist, if you ain't got nothing better to cling, if you ain't got nothing better for them to cling on to, then you are them. That's just your way of being a Christian. You see what I'm saying? So if you, and then when it goes even deeper than that, but y'all motherfuckers are silly. But for the most part, everything is expansion and contraction. So this is where you get having to do things in moderation, because sometimes you may vibrate too low in certain worlds based upon, for an example, if you're vibrating too low in a world that's expanding and contraction, that's a vibration. So you go into that world. So that's a world of you're doing something for somebody, or a world of hatred or something like that. Now, if you're vibrating too low, you're going to get overwhelmed by the waves in that womb. You're going to get overwhelmed. So you're going to be pushed around. You're going to be like a little marble, pushed around, flinging around and shit. So your ass better gain some type of space, gain your space around, or you're going to be overwhelmed by the other people's space or the places of things space and be taken advantage of and shit like that. So your ass need to learn in that world and be tossed around so you can develop experience. And your ass is a small ass vibrational expansion and contraction in that world. So you like a little ping pong thrown around. So you may get pushed in this area. You may need to learn from that area, get pushed in this area, get pushed in that area, till your ass start developing enough information on your spirit that you start to you can start matching. And you start being about expansion and contraction the same way that world is. So now you know how to jump rope and move. Now you know how to move in that world, and now you could become bigger and take yourself out of that, or balance yourself in it if you like what's going on in that world, or you got friends that or family that's clinging you to that. But for the most part, that's what it is. But I'm just trying to get y'all to understand this is where everything derives from: expansion and contraction. And if you got anybody who try to discredit this, they're just the only way they can discredit it by utilizing a science that came from a form of expansion and contraction. Because I will be able to see what you're trying to argue, and in some way, shape, or form, it's going to be a form of expansion and contraction. You can't escape it. And whatever they're trying to use, the words and however they're trying to construct it, came from some form of expansion and contraction. Even if they're trying to argue with me, you're using a form of deduction, a form of subtraction. You're trying to take away or discredit, take away, subtract, deduct. It's all in the same shit. So you're trying to deduct, subtract this information I'm pulling off, where this form of information came from expansion and contraction. And your ass trying to do some form of contraction, but you see what I'm saying? You can't escape it in this reality. So that's the single most property in this reality: expansion and contraction, and that's where all other sciences derive from. Even how stars are made. Flight boss, bitch. Goddamn air.